Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Sandy Farlow, your worship associate for today. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church. Barb, would you catch that back door for us, please? Thank you. A short definition of Unitarian Universalism is simply one God, no one left behind. We are founded on a common vision, not a required creed. The key concepts in the UU principles are worth and dignity, equity and compassion, a search for truth and justice, acceptance and respect. Our mission here at Community Church is to nourish spirits, work for justice, and transform lives. Our guest speaker today is their new executive director, Shalaina Abioye. Shalaina is a native Dallasite and has worked in the humanitarian sector for over 15 years. She was working in the semiconductor industry when she began as a volunteer. The first refugee family she met back in 2007 drew her into this work, where her passion is sharing their stories. Now I want to tell you, this woman is a powerhouse. I'm going to share a little bit from her professional resume. She has extensive leadership, management, and direct services experience through her various leadership positions at 3 nonprofits, a research consulting firm, and serving as a graduate faculty member for 8 years. Shalaina has extensive strategic planning, change management, and operations experience. She holds a BBA, a Master of Arts in Diplomacy with a focus on international peace and conflict resolution, and a Doctorate of Education in Organizational Leadership and Development. Wow, that's what I said. So that's the last time we'll put you through that embarrassing display of credentials, Shalaina. Just as Bill Halston became our friend through our work with HRI, so shall you be Shalaina, our friend from HRI. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe and to each other. Deanna will light our chalice this morning.
The creation of the world did not occur at the beginning of time. It occurs every day.
Mindful of truth ever exceeding our knowledge, and community ever exceeding our practice, reverently we covenant together, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share the strength of integrity and the heritage of the Spirit in an unending quest for wisdom and love. Please join me as we say our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth, and to help one another. Please join me for our responsive reading. Your words are in bold on the screen. We know that hurt moves through the world, perpetuated by action, inaction, and indifference. Our values call us to live in the reality of the heartbreak of our world, remembering that
no one is outside the circle of love.
We know that things break or break down. Promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human hearts and our very institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy. With compassion as our guide, we seek the well-being of all people. We seek to dismantle systems of oppression that undermine our collective humanity. We believe that we're here to guide one another toward love. No matter how fractured we are or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, sometimes inconceivable love in which we live. I love that. That's written by Susan Frederick Gray, and I can't remember the other author. And it was actually adapted from an article, an editorial that she wrote for UU World, and someone kindly turned it into a wonderful responsive reading.
Good morning. I will be reading from Surah, which is also a chapter in the Quran, from Ali-Imran. And it's verse 103, and it states, "And hold firmly to the rope of Allah altogether, and do not become divided. And remember the favor of Allah upon you. When you were enemies, He brought your hearts together, and you became, in His favor, brothers." Thank you. Well, hello again. Thank you all so much for this invitation and for continuing to support Human Rights Initiative of North Texas. We know that especially when people move on, when there's big changes in leadership, like losing Bill after over 10 years, that sometimes those relationships may change. And we're just so grateful to continue our friendship and our relationship with you all. So thank you so much as we continue to carry out our mission and our vision. And with me just trying to fill Bill's shoes, I can also call Bill a friend. We speak somewhat frequently. And so we all love Bill and are wishing him the best in his new role. But I just wanted to thank you all. Today, I will be talking about building community through privilege. And I know probably most of you are familiar with the Human Rights Initiative of North Texas, but I also want to just give a little bit of a reminder, and then also share some things that are in our near future. A lot of things have changed in the immigration context, policies and laws. It's becoming more polarized and more hostile, and we have to meet the growing needs of the communities that we serve. And in order to do that, we have to build community around them through the privileges that all of us have. But before I jump into that, I just wanted to say thank you for that book reading today. It really resonated with me as a little girl from South Dallas, growing up and having traveled the world a lot and found myself in places where I saw no one else looking like me. I would get the question of, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "Well, I'm from Dallas." And they'd ask me again, "But where are you really from?" And I'd say, "I'm from Dallas." And they'd say, and I knew the third question was always, "Well, where are your parents from?" Yeah. And I say, "They're from Dallas as well." And so I think a lot of people just assumed that we were, immigrants and from another country. But that's one of the privileges that I hold, as obviously when you look at me, I'm brown, I'm a woman. I come from the southern sector, which is a low income area. And a lot of folks would look at me and say, I don't have privileges, right? But I have the privilege of being born in this country and having citizenship. And so that privilege in and of itself is something that a lot of members of our community do not have, like the clients that we serve at Human Rights Initiative. And that's why we are there to help them gain that pathway to citizenship. So thank you for that. That was very beautiful. But I just want to talk mainly about three things when we're talking about building community around our privileges, and that's learning. A lot of things, again, have changed in our world when it comes to immigration and people who do not either have documentation or citizenship or permanent residency, and understanding the challenges that they face while they're trying to gain that protection, and then building community through education, using the information, the resources that we have to educate ourselves and others in order to build a community around these folks, and then taking action is what we'll talk about today. And when we talk about learning, it's knowing what's happening in our world today. There have been a lot of harmful policies and bills in the last few years that keep people from accessing things that will help them mobilize and be better connected and have a sense of community. When we were putting our new strategy together at Human Rights Initiative over the last few months, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that our services and our strategy contributed to was folks gaining their dignity, for them having opportunity and being able to access things that were previously unattainable to them, for stability and well-being, and also for a growing sense of community so that they no longer have to live in the shadows and can be a part of this beautiful community that we're all a part of. And a lot of that is due to privilege as well. And so having data sometimes is really important. There's an organization that collects a lot of data on immigrants and their contributions to our community, and it's called the American Immigration Council. And sometimes when you're out in your daily lives and you're educating people about immigrants and their contributions to society, having a little bit of data sometimes is very, very helpful. And so that's a website that can be used to show their economic contributions as well as other contributions. But understanding policies, there is a policy right now. It's a little bit in limbo, but it's a Texas law that was passed earlier this year, and it's called SB4. You all may have heard about that, and it's not necessarily a law that will harm immigrants, but it's a law that can harm anybody that's a person of color who someone could think is an immigrant who may not be here legally. My husband is an immigrant. He's a citizen now, but he's been in this country for 30 years. And even for someone like him, who's a citizen but has an accent, he could, if he was just pulled over for a traffic violation, could be detained and put in detention and deported without having a way to show that he is a citizen. And so those are very harmful for our community at large. And so understanding what those types of laws and policies do to people who may not have certain privileges. And when we talk about privileges, a lot of the times we think about, what a person looks like and where they come from and these physical or visible attributions, but privileges can be invisible as well. Like I said, someone who's brown like me and a woman and come from a low income neighborhood, you would think I wouldn't have certain privileges, but I have the privilege of being a woman in spaces where maybe women voices are not there. When I was in the semiconductor industry for 6 years, it was a very male-dominated industry, but being a woman in that industry gave me privilege to bring other women in those places with me. And when I think about privilege, I think about how can I bring people to the table. We hear a lot of the times that we want to give voice to the voiceless, or we want to be the voice to those who cannot speak for themselves, but everybody can speak for themselves. And those of us with certain privileges, if we can bring them in the rooms with us, if we can lean in and identify which voices are not in this room with me, and how can I bring those voices with me to help them speak in this room instead of speaking on behalf of them, is very important. And those other invisible privileges are access, connections, resources, knowledge. Those are privileges that all of us hold, that could help build community and bring people in with us. The other thing that I want to talk about is taking action. It's really important to take action using our privileges when we've educated ourselves, when we're bringing people along with us to fill in those gaps and voices that are not around, is taking action. And a lot of times when we talk about taking action, we think it has to be bold and loud, and it doesn't have to be that way. It can be passive. It can be quiet action that we take. And that's in making sure that our policymakers are supportive of laws and policies that help people move forward instead of taking rights and privileges away from them. It is mobilizing and making sure people go out and vote, and that type of thing, to make sure that folks are representing them that really represent their interest and our interests. You all are a beautiful community here and so loving and kind, and we're seeing less and less of that in our policy makers. And so if we can, take the quiet and passive action to get people like you in those places of power, is really, really important to do. And I'll close. I'm very quick today. I'm very efficient, right? With my speaking is just inviting other organizations out to learn about the communities that they're supporting and how to build community around them with the privileges that we all hold is important in learning and educating ourselves, as well as going and sharing and digging a little bit deeper in what privileges do I hold, and with those privileges, do I have the responsibility to use that privilege to build a community around me, to bring in the voices that are not being heard in the places that I am in, is really important. And I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your continued support of our mission, and the children that we are helping, the families that we're helping. But before I do close, I just want to say that this month is my favorite month of the year. June, as I know many of you know, I see next week you all have a lesson on queer sampler. Who are we? With this being Pride Month, it's a very exciting month, and building community around a group of marginalized people who have slowly gotten rights over time, but who are still being oppressed in many, many ways. A lot of laws against transgender people and children especially, very, very harsh. And so as we all continue to fight and rally around that community, I just want to celebrate the LGBTQ community. I myself am a queer person, and June is also Juneteenth, and celebrating the freedom of Black folk in Texas who did not know that they were free 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, and celebrating that knowledge of being free. And we're also celebrating World Refugee Day. It was on June 20th. So the freedom of folks who've been persecuted based on religion, race, nationality, social group status, or political opinion. And some people don't realize that that definition of refugee, that social group status, is the status that people can use who've been persecuted, who are queer, and are able to utilize that definition to gain either refugee status or asylum in this country. And so that's where they get that protection there. And then just a little personal note, I also love June because both of my parents' birthdays in June, their wedding anniversary is in June, Father's Day is in June, and my 3-year-old's birthday is in June. So June is a very special month for me. And it's, thank you, even more special that I was invited to speak with you all today. So thank you very much.